So turn talk. Turn talk's a way of getting your students to communicate with each other. And what it does is it allows them to have a conversation and discuss their learning. So what is it? Well, you give the signal for the class to turn to each other. You allow them a few seconds to find their partner. You ask a question or tell them what to discuss. Move around the classroom. This is you move around the classroom. They don't need to move around the classroom whilst they discuss your question in their pairs. Give the signal for them to finish talking or use a countdown technique. Make sure the class is turned to face you and ask 1 or 2 questions to give their answers or opinions to your question. So what's this used for? Well, this is a really good technique if you want them to have a discussion with each other about something. It might be that you want to push them on a little bit further. It might be that you're recapping some learning. It might be that you're trying to initiate and start the conversation about learning. Turn talk's actually outlined in Doug Yumov's book, and that's Teach Like a Champion. So how do we use it? Well, a really good way of thinking about turn talk is to think, look, listen, ready, speak, turn, wait. So this is a really useful poster that you're going to receive in the post-event materials. And it's always very important to provide clear instructions to your students. So look at your partner. So for example, you've got them in pairs. Look at your partner. Listen to your partner. It's no good if the 2 people in the pairs are simply talking over each other. Be ready to speak when it's your turn. So think about what you're saying, think about what you're going to say whilst listening to the other person, and then be ready to say those words. Speak so that only your partner can hear you. Now that's quite important because you don't want each other shouting. If you've got 15 pairs in your room or more, you don't want them to be shouting at each other so that nobody can hear anything. So speak in a voice where only the partner can hear. When they're finished, turn and face the front of the room. Now that will let you know as a teacher when they have finished their conversation and their discussion. That is a useful sign for you to let you know that they have finished. And then wait quietly until the teacher asks you to speak. Now, again, that's very important because you might get students going, I finished, I finished, I finished. But if you can see them and they have already turned to you, then waiting quietly until you as the teacher are ready for them shows their patience. Now, it might be that you end up giving them some extension tasks because you don't want them to sit there for a few more minutes whilst everybody else is continuing their work. So you might give them a bit of an extension. So in order for them to wait quietly, you might just give them an extra little bit more of a task, not more of the same, maybe something a little bit different, with the discussion that it is extra work. So don't worry if it's not finished by the time we've finished this original task. So this is a useful poster for instructions for your students. So now we've had a quick think about what turn talk is, how do you use it in your lessons? Now I'm going to provide you with a couple of different techniques, some scenarios. Now the scenarios are from 2 different sorts of classrooms, and I want you to think about what you would tell the teacher to do in terms of how would you use turn talk. So scenario 1. Mr. Ortega is preparing to teach Year 2 English. His objective is to select vocabulary that describes a scary place. He has decided to give each pair a picture of a different scary location. Maybe it be a haunted house, maybe it be an abandoned building, and make them think of vocabulary. What instruction should Mr. Ortega give on how to use turn talk? Now, if you've got any ideas, what I'd like you to do is to type them in for me into the chat. So he would like his students to use turn talk at some stage in this lesson. What instructions should Mr. Ortega give on how to use Turn Talk? If you've got any ideas, just put them straight into the chat for me. I'll let you have a think. If you've got any ideas, put them into the chat. And if nobody does, then I will explain what I would suggest to him. Okay, so no ideas are coming through, so I'll explain what I would do. Well, I would say that Mr. Ortega should say, I am going to split you into pairs. And then you two sit together, you two, you two, you two, you two, you two. Identify yourself as person number 1 and person number 2. Person number 1, you will go first. Look at your picture that you have in front of you and tell your partner 5 words that you think describe the scary location. Person 2, whilst person 1 is talking, you should stay quiet. Once person 1 has finished talking, person 2, you can say whether you agree or disagree and add some more vocabulary. Once person 2 has finished, then you should both turn to the front and wait patiently for the rest of the class. That would be a really good way of explaining the task. And what you could do is put up the poster on your board, and you could actually allow the students to look at the poster that we've already discussed and put it on your board, put it on the classroom behind you, and then you can point and give the instructions. Bantar has said, look at the picture carefully and say what you have seen. Thank you very much. That's great, Bantar. Okay, let's have a look at another scenario. Mrs. Singh is wanting to teach volcano structures to a Year 8 geography class, but she has only just taken over the class. She doesn't know them. She doesn't know what they know about the topic at all. How can she use Turn Talk to help her to work out what the students know? Okay, so tell me what you think. Are there any instructions that Mrs. Singh should give? Well, how can she use Turn Talk in that situation? I'll give you a minute to have a little think. Well, Mrs. Singh could say, well, let's see what you know about volcanoes. Let's use Turn Talk to work out what you know. She might put a couple of questions on the board. She might put the question, what do you know about volcanoes? And say to her class, okay, in pairs, I want you to use Turn Talk and I want you to tell each other the answer to this question. What do you know about volcanoes? She could say, you have 3 minutes. Providing the time is a really useful strategy because the students know exactly how long they've got to do the task. She could look at her clock and say, you've got 3 minutes. There may be a clock on the board, on your board in your room or on a wall. It's really useful to look at that clock. Okay, tell each other what you know, use Turn Talk. Person 1, listen to person 2 talk. Person 2, when you're finished, you stop and wait and listen to person 1. Then I'm going to ask one of the pair to feed back. After 3 minutes, she stops the class and she says, okay, thank you very much. Now I'm going to pick on one of the people in the pair to tell me what you know. So Turn Talk could be a really useful strategy for her to collate information about what the students know about a topic. Okay. So Why are strategies like Turn Talk incredibly important to use in the classroom? Well, we have two types of learning. We have passive learning and we have active learning. Passive learning is a method of learning or instruction where the teacher presents and the learner has little opportunity to engage with the learning itself. There typically is no interacting with the teacher or receiving feedback on performance. Active learning is an approach to instruction that involves actively engaging students with the learning materials through discussions, problem solving, group projects, and more. Students are given the opportunity to put their learning into practice practically. So, which do you think is more effective in the classroom and why? Type either passive or active and then tell me why you think that. Is it passive or active? Which do you think? Whilst you're having a think about that, I will read out some answers to do with Mrs. Singh that have just come through, which is lovely. Mrs. Singh, Bantar says she can brainstorm the learners with questions on volcanoes. Good. Alex says Mrs. Singh should ask the learners to pair and ask the students to share with their partners what they know about the volcano. Then tell them the time limit, then ask them to share with the class. Thank you, Alex. That's absolutely perfect. That's exactly what Mrs. Singh should do. Thank you. So, which is better, active and passive, and why? Which do you think? I'm not getting any answers as to which one's better, active or passive. I know that you know this. Active learning, thank you very much. Active learning from Alex. Learners remain engaged and they get the feedback off their learning. Absolutely right. Thank you very much, Alex. That's a great answer. Absolutely right. And Turn Talk is an example of active learning. Dorothy, I think active because it makes me know the problems of my students in that topic. You're absolutely right. And it's really important. Let's say Mrs. Singh did try to gain the knowledge on what they knew about volcanoes. And there was something that wasn't right that came out of Turn Talk. But she's gained that knowledge rather than saying, no, you're wrong. Remember, she's only just met this class. And even if you've not only just met this class, we don't want to be saying to students, no, you're wrong. We don't want to be saying they're right when they're wrong either. But Mrs. Singh could take it on board and say, hang on, they didn't know that. I need to plan to correct that straight away. And she can inform her planning from it. So when we're doing things like Turn Talk, it's really important to not embarrass the students and to help them feel supported. We can't praise things that are wrong. That's not what we want to do. But we also don't want to embarrass them in front of the rest of the class. We want to support them. And active learning strategies work when we are being supportive and cooperative, even if we are not praising them. Active learning also develops high order thinking skills amongst students. Thank you, Alex. Bantar, to me, active learning is good because it helps the learners to be more concerned with their own learning. Absolutely. And that's right, Bantar, taking ownership over the learning is really important because the more ownership that students have and feel that they have, the more confident they're going to be with their own learning and their own skills. Thank you. So what other active learning strategies do we have? Well, Amina was really fantastic with giving us some feedback, and she says she uses Turn Talk with her Form 2 students to give them the chance to share their ideas. But she also uses some of our other practical active learning strategies. She uses the Do Now strategy. because it's paved a way to active learning in my classroom as my learners become engaged. Stretch It gave the learners the opportunity to be critical thinkers. So that's fantastic that she's used some of our other strategies. And if you are interested in those other strategies, I highly recommend taking the Practical Active Learning for your classroom course. The Teach 2030 course, part 1 is always free, and part 2 is currently free when you use the code Teach2030. You simply need to type it in. And how do you sign up for Teach 2030 courses? Let's have a very quick look at the video, and then we'll summarise our learning for today.
It is very simple to create your Teach 2030 account and choose the course that is right for you. You open up teach2030.com and visit the website. You click on the menu bar at the top and choose Teachers to explore the courses that we have. When you decide which course you would like to do, you have a look and I think, okay, I'd like to start planning lessons to reach your learners. I click Learn Today. This will take me to more information about this course. Is it right for me? Read the course objectives, have a little look at the course content, and then I think, yes, this is what I'd like to do. Part 1 of all our courses is free, so I click Take this course. You will then be asked to create your account. You can see planning lessons to reach all learners is in the basket. If you have a discount code, you would apply it here, but you do not need one for part 1 of any course, and then proceed to checkout. Here you enter your name. Make sure it is something that you will remember, so don't use a nickname that you might forget. Then here you enter your address. And then your email. Here you then enter your username. So again, make sure that you use a name that you are going to remember. And then you will be asked to create your own password. Make sure again it's something that you can remember, although it is possible to reset your account at any time. You then click Place Order. And your account will be created. You've now logged in. It says your name here, the courses that you can access. If you click on the course, you can get started straight away learning with Teach 2030.
Okay, so let's just consolidate our learning today, and then we will finish. So Turn Talk is an active learning strategy. This means students will be engaged with their own learning. Turn Talk can be used at any point in the lesson, whether it be the start of the main or the plenary. There are 7 other active learning strategies in our course, Practical Active Learning for your classroom. And Teach 2030 courses are low cost. You can take one for free using the code Teach2030. You simply visit teach2030.com. Now, as usual, I always promise that these workshops are very short. We have slightly gone over. It is now 20 past as opposed to 1/4 past. But I'm hoping that you've all learned something useful about Turn Talk today. If there are any final comments, please feel free to leave them now. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you again next week for our Q&A, and then next month for our next workshop. Thank you so much for joining us.